Lesson 6.3, welcome grade 8s. It's European worldview and identity. How did the age of exploration affect European lives and their worldview? So stick around and let's learn something. Like I said in the intro, it's lesson 6.3. How did the age of exploration affect Europeans' lives and worldview? Oh, there's that word again, worldview. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. European worldview and identity, to be more precise. And we're taking a look at how the worldview is changing throughout the story that we have here, our story of history. Before the age of exploration, there was a lot of mystery out there, and there was a lot of myth and legend that existed. So this age of exploration that we are learning about right now, this part of our story, proved sea monsters didn't exist. Obviously. It only took us 100 years of circumnavigating the planet to figure that out. But no sea monsters exist. Well, no sea monsters in the terms of the legends and mythical creatures of sea monsters. It also revealed that everybody looked similar. So it doesn't matter what continent you are on, everybody has similar features. We all look the same. And the world as a whole was way different than what was imagined. Okay, so, and again, that goes back to the way we all looked similar. We found as well, during the age of exploration, we found a sea route to Asia. We can use Africa to get to Asia. We can go down through the southern coast of South America to get to Asia. And we discovered, my air quotations again, you don't see them, but I'm doing them. We discovered two incredibly massive continents, North and South America. We didn't really discover them. They were always there, but from a European perspective, they were discovered. And the Europeans started becoming the most powerful. Okay, they became the most powerful groups around. And Portugal became the most powerful when they defeated the Arabs in the Indian Ocean there. And then the Spanish, they became the most powerful European country around when they conquered the Americas. We also see during the age of exploration, France, England, the Netherlands, they're joining in this race. They want to be the best that there is. They want to be superpowers. They want to be in charge and in control of everything. And then by the end of the Renaissance, the trade that existed was extremely competitive, and all of the European countries were involved in this. This map here, I want you to take a look at this map. This map is absolutely incredible. If you take a look, these are the countries that have been under European control. That's the planet right there. That's almost every single country has been under the control of the Europeans. Look at that. That's amazing. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 countries maybe that I'm counting here that were never colonized by Europe. But every other country either is European, was either colonized or controlled by Europe, had some sort of partial control or influence from Europe, or it's within their sphere of European influence. That is absolutely amazing when you take a look at this map, the amount of influence that the European countries had. And this is why we spend so much time and energy focusing our attention on the Europeans and the Renaissance worldview, because as you can see, it's something that unites us all here on the planet. So we're going to pause with the Portuguese and the Spanish, and we're going to take a look at the French. Sorry, not the French. We're going to take a look at the English with Francis Drake. And he is very famous because he is the first English person to circumnavigate the planet. He raided the Spanish ports and Spanish ships and took gold, and he found fame and fortune for England. And under the control of Queen Elizabeth I, and with the help of Francis Drake, we now see England catapulting over Spain to become the most powerful country on the planet in this time in our story. And this accomplishment was a huge sense of pride and confidence for that of England and the English people. And now we're really starting to see this sense of patriotism take place. And the English are proud to be English because look what we did to the Spanish. We passed the Spanish in terms of superpowerness. I think that's a word. And if it's not, it's a word now, superpowerness. And we really see the rise in patriotism taking place. Not all was bad when it comes to making contact with the First Nations of the quotations in the air, New World. But the Europeans were actually very fascinated with the First Nations, and they were very interested in how First Nations lived. That's the people living in Europe that are fascinated with them. The ones that made their way over, and we saw this and we heard about the crimes that were always being committed, was a different story. But if you were in Europe, there was a fascination with that of the life of the indigenous people. They saw the indigenous life as being a happy life. You don't own anything. There's no sense of ownership. You're just living one with nature. From a European point of view, the First Nations had a very happy life compared to those of the Europeans who were, chasing material possessions and trying to just make more and more money and things like that. And all that comes at an extreme cost, as we saw and as we will see what happens to the indigenous people of the Americas. And that brings us to expansionism and imperialism. Despite the curiosity that the Europeans had for First Nations, the European countries were still very ethnocentric, and they didn't view the indigenous lands, these new lands, as something to be shared. They saw it as something for their taking. It was a resource bank, and the new lands, they weren't European. But if a European were to set foot on these lands, then it becomes theirs. They get to own it. It's actually a really weird idea that existed back then. And the Europeans, they were ethnocentric. This is how they saw it. The ethnocentrism, the expansionism, and imperialism led to the destruction of our First Nations and led to the increase in the African slave trade. And we learned about this last year in grade 7. We will continue to learn about this in the next unit. The death, the disease, and destruction that takes place because of this ethnocentrism that existed with the expansionism and imperialism worldview of the time. It's actually really sad. Fast forward to today, we have made great strides in what's happening in our world, but there's still something that needs to be done. We're all citizens of the world, and the Renaissance and exploration were the first steps to creating a global village. And we've heard global village before. You may have heard this in elementary school. If I taught you, I didn't teach you last year in grade 7, but you may have heard your social 7 teacher talk about this global village that exists. And really, humanism, curiosity, optimism, and the belief in individual encouragement, along with the printing press, made people look beyond their own known world. And if we fast forward that to today, you'll see a map here on this slide. This is the physical internet. These are the cables that run through the ocean or down by the ocean floor that transmit data across the planet. So the planet is huge. When we take a look at these internet cables and these lines, this is how the data is being transferred from continent to continent, country to country. It is connecting us, and this is a physical part of the internet that is connecting us today and is making us more like that global village. And now you look at your social media, you can have contact with anybody almost anywhere on the planet through social media, through the internet, and we start to see that we have a lot in common. Do we still have a lot of work to do? Absolutely. But do we have a lot of similarities and a lot of common traits? Absolutely. Okay, I want you to head over to your notebook and complete the questions for this part of the chapter.